I think that anytime you go on the road in the Big 12, your attention, kind of your red flags need to go up, and you need to make sure that you're somewhat prepared mentally as well as physically to go on the road and try to get a win. I think we've experienced that twice already in league play, that it's not near as easy as it is in the friendly confines of the Frank Irwin Center. So first and foremost, we need to really lace our shoes up and make sure that we're as competitive as we are at home. I think that's been a little bit of the personality of this team. So we're trying to find the answer to that and see if we can take our approach that we have at home on the road.
Question? When you said personality, you talked about the road home mentality, not playing as well on the road as you do at home, that kind of thing. 'Cause a few weeks ago, you actually said you thought they were playing better at home than a few years ago before the big crowd. They got starstruck with the big Baylor crowd and they froze, as you said.
Well, I think we've learned to use the home crowd as our advantage. I mean, that's a learning process. And when we first arrived 6 years ago, it wasn't too raucous in the Irwin Center. So that it has been a process for us to learn to handle the home crowd expectations and the frenzy that you get when they're for you. This particular team, and every team is different. So that's the interesting thing about sports and college sports in general and all sports, is that no season is ever the same. No team is ever the same. It doesn't matter whether you take one off and put one on or whatever happens as far as numbers, but no team is ever the same. And so this team has been a little interesting for me to try to figure out their personality and their chemistry. And it's been ongoing, too, because we've had some players and that's another thing that every team goes through, is when you have injuries or the situations that we've had with players kind of coming in and out, your chemistry changes constantly. So I think that's a learning process for them to get used to that. And it's still ongoing, so it's going to continue that way.
Coach, as you mentioned the coming and going of players, does that also factor into lineups? Do you feel like you're still trying to figure out the best rotation and matches of there?
Well, I definitely would like to continue to try to play a few more kids. I mean, there's a point in time that we got to where I really honestly thought there were only 6 or 7 that were performing at the level that we needed to, and that's not my style for sure, and it's really not what we need to do. So I'm hoping that a few more people will join the party and be able to give us really quality minutes. I mean, at this point, the minutes have to be quality, regardless of how many they are. They have to be productive in a sense of your defense, your rebounding, your attention to detail, and then can you get us a few extra buckets when necessary? All of those things have to happen when a player comes off the bench. So, yes, I'm still trying to find that. And, I mean, there is potential for a change in the lineup. I mean, I did think that I thought we played pretty good against Iowa State, but you have to turn the page pretty quick in Big 12 play. But as I look back, I mean, maybe our starts haven't been as good as they need to be, but there really honestly hasn't been anybody that's jumped out at me and said, okay, I deserve to start right now. So that's sort of my dilemma. I'm not sure our starting lineup has performed the way they need to in the last 3 or 4 games.
What about the freshmen? It's a pretty heralded class.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think you would need them more than you have this year?
I thought they would contribute. I definitely thought that there was a place for their skill sets. And, I mean, it's for maybe another conversation besides today, but each one of them has had their own stuff that has kind of gotten in the way of their progress. And you never know sometimes when that little freshman light bulb comes on. But, again, each one has had some different issues, whether it be injury, illness. They've had some setbacks that were, quite honestly, very unexpected. And I mean, you always expect freshmen to have those ups and downs that freshmen have, but I didn't think that they would have this many setbacks. So their skill sets definitely would help us, but they also have to be at a place where they feel really comfortable and confident, and they've had some setbacks with that.
You said the other day that you like to watch them in practice.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for when you watch some of those practices, and do you and Shaka bounce ideas off each other?
I wouldn't say we necessarily bounce ideas. I mean, we do watch each other play, and so there's encouragement more than anything. I mean, I think that we both know we have assistant coaches that we bounce things off of, but I've always enjoyed, I enjoyed watching Rick practice, and that's just kind of been something that I've really always enjoyed. I'm really good friends with Alan Major, who was the coach at Charlotte at the time I was there, and I mean, I've always enjoyed watching other people at the craft that I'm also in. So you just learn little bitty things. I mean, it's not anything that you're definitely going to go, okay, I'm going to do this, and this. But I think if you can, it's kind of like I say about going to a coaching clinic or anything where you're watching peers work. If you can just take one thing away, then you've become a better coach. So that's kind of how I look at practice with him, is just, if I can see something that might make us better, I'm going to do it.
The other day you said, well, it's not even February yet.
Almost.
Do you see a scenario later on, maybe even in the regular season, when Joyner cracks the starting lineup, if she makes the progress that she has been making?
I think it's very possible due to her rebounding ability. I think that what has been significant for her has just been the fact that she hasn't been able to get those competitive juices flowing, where the motor runs all the time and you go from play to play and you don't worry about what just happened. I mean, that's usually a freshman problem and a little bit of a sophomore problem, and then you take into account that she had that gap of time that she wasn't here. That's probably what left her, really, was not necessarily skill or knowledge of the game or whatever, but just competitive juices. I mean, she had to somewhat figure out how to kind of temper those for a little bit. And then now, how do you turn that on? And if those continue to be turned on, then it's sort of a given that she's going to be able to rebound. And that's an area that, extra buckets, a presence in the paint, besides Jatari, will help us as somebody that's able to guard another team's best four player if they have size, speed. Those are all of the things that will help us be better. So, I mean, there's potential for a few of them to crack the lineup if we don't start any better than we have in the last 3 or 4 games.
How close do you think Joyner is to getting back to that level of play from last year?
If I based it on Saturday, is Sunday? Saturday? What day did we play? Saturday? I don't even know what today is. If I based it on Saturday, I would say that she's making significant progress. But, I mean, I also, we played on Thursday, and it didn't look like that. So some consistency is what I'm looking for. But, again, I mean, a shake in the lineup might help them all. So it might help her. It might help the team. I mean, you never know. So it's not anything that I definitely wouldn't say I wouldn't look at. I mean, she got 11 rebounds in not very many minutes. So I like rebounding.
Coach, when you talk about being mentally prepared for a conference road game, how do you coach that? Like, how do you check to see if the players are actually improving in that area?
Well, I don't think we've been terrible. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like we haven't been as focused, energetic, passionate, competitive in the losses, and they've all, the road losses. Obviously we were all of those things in the Connecticut loss, and everybody knows that. And if I could bottle that up, the way that we played in that game, aside from the fact that we didn't win, obviously I would do that. But when you go on the road, I mean, sometimes players don't have it, and is your bench ready? Are they ready to give you a lift? There's just some different things that go into being a good road team, and it's mental toughness, being able to create your own energy and not depend on somebody else to create that for you. And that's, some teams have that figured out and some are not as good with it. And you would think that we would be okay. I mean, because we are a fairly mature team. I don't think we're an immature team. But their ability to feed off of each other and encourage each other and try to, give each other that type of energy that you need, we haven't quite found that.
Brooke doing a good job of running the offense, but our shots not falling. What's your concern on
I'm not concerned because I do think that, for example, in the Iowa State game, she didn't necessarily have to shoot the ball. I think there were people open. I thought we had an advantage in the paint, and she's gotten to the point where she's smart enough and unselfish enough of a player that was part of the conversation at halftime was, okay, Jatari looks like she might be having a pretty good night. Let's see if we can take advantage of that. And first trip down the floor, she wasn't open, but Audrey was in the second half, and Audrey scores down low. So I think that it's just part of the process of being a point guard is you're gonna try to process what's available for us tonight and how can I get the best out of my teammates. But as we move forward, I mean, I definitely know that there's going to be times that we're going to need her to shoot the ball, and I have no doubt in my mind that will happen. If you play the game long enough, you're going to run into a snag at some point. It's just the way life is. It's the way the sport is.
Other questions?
Coach, how do you think that Kellyanne's looked since coming back from the injury?
She's looked good. She's looked good. She had a good couple of days before we went to Tech, and she really was just released right before we left for Lubbock. And then I think just anxious to get out there, had another little setback that was very, very minor, but again, we're cautious with throwing her into too much because we don't want to re-injure the foot. So, but I do think that she's always prepared. That's the thing about Callie that and she's one of those players that could provide us a spark because she's got a lot of energy and she pays attention to game plans. But it was amazing to me that she could come back after not having played anymore and be so in tune with what it is we're looking for. So she's paying attention, and that's maturity.
And one more. You'd mentioned that the three freshmen have had their setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I know what two of them are, but Chastity Patterson, what has been her setback?
She had an illness last week.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. She'll be back today, but she was out with an illness for a week. So it's been one thing after another with them, and Destiny's got some issues that she's dealing with, and also Rella. So it one thing after another. But I definitely think that. I mean, if it was all about basketball, I'd be devastated. But it's not, and so they've really matured a lot in some other areas, and I think that the rest of it will catch up because they're good basketball players. But they've worked on a lot of things that were outside of basketball, and Texas is it's an overwhelming place sometimes as far as being a student athlete, and I think that they've all three made some strides that were really important for their continuing careers.